which everybody needs to understand a little bit more about human trafficking. And I really do commend the authors of this. It's very easy to read, it's very sad to read, but it is something that is an essential handbook. Now, sadly, human trafficking is as old as history. It precedes biblical times, and its greatest manifestation, I suppose, is slavery. And we have seen 2 centuries of the attempted abolition of slavery. We've seen international movements, we've seen national movements. I'm very proud of the history of this country in bringing about the end of slavery and actually motivating other countries to do the same. But that belies the fact, for thousands upon thousands of years, it was standard practice that if you defeated your enemy, all its inhabitants became your slaves. And they were in permanent servitude. They had no rights whatsoever. We've seen only a very recent evolution over the last few hundred years of the whole concept of human rights, human dignity, the individual dignity, and matters of that nature. So we are dealing with thousands of years of embedded history of where slavery was not just something that happened, it was a foregone conclusion. It was embedded in society. So it gives some idea of the magnitude of the task. And much of what we've seen now in the attempts to combat human trafficking is actually a very recent vintage. I mean, just over 20 years ago, the United Nations passed 3 resolutions which came into effect in 2003, so-called Palermo Protocols. One was to combat human trafficking, one was to combat the forced migration of people through land, sea and air, and the third was to stop the illicit manufacture in and also trafficking of small arms. Those 3 protocols, as I say, are called the Palermo Protocols, and they are very much the bedrock of what we see today in the global attempts to try to overcome human trafficking. And it is an obscenity, and we recognise it as an obscenity now. But that in itself is quite a novel concept, as I've just been at pains to point out. And then we had regional movements and national movements. In Warsaw on the 16th of May 2005, the Council of Europe Convention on Action Against Trafficking in Human Beings was opened for accession. That convention established a group of experts on action against trafficking in human beings, with the acronym GRETA, Greta, which monitors the implementation of the convention. And I'm not going to give you a history lesson now, or indeed a tour de monde of all the different measures that have been taken by international, regional and national organisations to try to combat trafficking. But what this booklet is very useful in saying is showing the magnitude of the problem. The United States Department, estimates that in 2008 there were 27 million people who were subject to trafficking. Read the booklet. What is it now? How many is it now? Read the booklet. It's 50 million. Think of that. A 100% increase just in that short period in our own lives shows you the magnitude of what is going on. Now, people in this country are obviously very much obsessed by the small boats, the dinghies, and the people smugglers. You will know, and it's already been explained, and again it's explained very carefully in the last page of this booklet, that smuggling is very different from human trafficking. Human smuggling implies a degree of consent on the part of the people who are being smuggled. And that is what we are seeing with the small boats manufactured in Turkey, brought to Germany, kept in Essen, and then moved to the French coast to enable people to come across. I believe there is far more hyperbole than sense or good factual information about the nature of that degree of people smuggling, because frankly, even though they number in the thousands, they are really largely a substitute for the people who used to come in the back of refrigerated trucks. And it's only that the detection devices have become so sophisticated now to detect people who are in those trucks that the smugglers have actually changed their routes from the trucks into the dinghies. And the loss of life is a tragedy. But it means that governments have to fight on two fronts. They have to fight the smugglers on people smuggling, and I've already explained there's a separate protocol of the Palermo Protocols which deals with that, but they also have to deal with this much, much more difficult position of human trafficking, which, as Sheikh Ramsey was explaining, relies on the fact that people are coerced against their will. So they're not saying to a smuggler, here's 10,000 euros, get me across to the United Kingdom. They are being coerced by the people who are using them. And that coercion can take an invidious form, because it's not just main force of people coming and saying to people and taking them and kidnapping them. It is also through deception. And deception is a recognised route that actually constitutes human trafficking, where people are told one thing and something completely different is happening to them. So you can begin to see the difficulty of definition, because actually at one level trafficking and smuggling becomes almost indistinct. Because if you go to a smuggler and say, I want to get to the United Kingdom because I want to be a nurse, or I want to work in a care home, or something like that, and the smuggler says, oh yes, there are lots of jobs like that, then takes away your passport, takes all your money, and you get smuggled into the United Kingdom, and what do you find? The next thing is, if you're a woman, you're in a brothel. You're actually being used for prostitution. Nothing to do with having a professional career in nursing or something of that nature, but actually being used for the most awful reasons whatsoever. So that is the problem that governments are faced with. But I'm glad to say that actually there is progress being made. Now, Sheikh, you're right to bemoan the fact that there are so few prosecutions and so few draconian penalties levelled as a result of those prosecutions. But between the 3rd and 9th of June of this year, only a very short while ago, 39 countries from across the globe participated in the MPACT platform. Now, MPACT stands for the European Multidisciplinary Platform Against Criminal Threats. And it was joint action against trafficking in human beings. It was led by Austria and co-led by Romania, Europol, Frontex and Interpol. And it was a massive operation called Global Change. It resulted in the arrest of 219 persons and the identification of over 1,300 victims as well, including, incidentally, 153 children, who are usually the most vulnerable and saddest victims of the whole trafficking institution. So, aimed at disrupting high-risk criminal networks, that operation was extremely successful. And the reason I draw it to your attention is because it does show that there is capacity in this multi-fractured world, this deglobalized world, this world where there is a narrow retreat into nationalism away from internationalism. There are still mechanisms out there where countries, as many as 39 together, including a lot in South America, could actually come together and exercise this enormous operation to actually identify and combat human trafficking. So I leave you with a note of hope, but also with a note of continued action that needs to be done, and long may Stop Human Trafficking survive and do its very valuable work.
I'm into that. Thank you very much.